Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Trident Talks. I'm delighted to be joined by Carlie Mcnamee, who is working for CyberOwl. As part of International Women's Day, Trident are doing a month-long piece around how we can support women getting into the industry and any kind of key trends that we can kind of help combat. Carlie, thanks so much for joining. How are you doing?
Pleasure. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it. For those that don't know you, would you like to give a brief introduction into who you are and what you do?
Sure. So as Charlie said, my name's Carlie Mcnamee. I am the SOC Manager at CyberOwl. CyberOwl is a security monitoring or provides security monitoring and analytics in the maritime industry and critical infrastructure. So predominantly at the moment, monitoring security and analytics in the maritime industry specifically.
Okay, that's awesome. It's not a lot of people are aware of the maritime space. So how did you get to where you are today? What made you jump into security?
It's been quite a journey. I've been in OT for well over 20 years now. So for me, specifically, it was many different hops and stops to kind of get to the job that I'm in now. And that's probably because starting out, even though I knew I wanted to be in IT, I didn't particularly know in which domain. And obviously going back to when I first started, security wasn't a big thing, it wasn't like a hot job at the time. So I really kind of started going into IT, not really knowing where to go. So I did Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. It's not called that now. And one of the domains in that was security. And that was really where my interest peaked first in security. But obviously hadn't done anything else in security. So got qualified there, went to work for lots of different companies, contracting, full-time roles in many different areas, from building computers from scratch to desktop support, many things, systems administrator. And then really kind of thought, okay, I like security, maybe I need to do something more sort of academic in that space. Went on to do my CISSP. And then just as I and again, it was quite difficult. Security wasn't as common back then. And just as I started to touch on security in the job that I was in, I decided to move to another country. So moved to Australia, and obviously not really doing security would have been a difficult thing to get back into. So I kind of took a step backwards again when I arrived in Australia in order to just get a job, and went back to kind of desktop type support. And really had to think about how I was going to achieve that security goal. So did a few jobs there, and then realized, hey, there's a bank here, they're going to have security. Happened to get a desk side job within the bank, knowing they had a security team, and thought if I could just get my foot in the door, and then obviously I can make it known that that's an interest and see where we go from there. And it just so happened that I got the job. I made it known that actually my goal was getting into security, and a position came up. I didn't get the job the first time around, but sort of kept making it be known. A position came up again, and I got the position the second time. And really that's where the journey began, and sort of went from banking, security in the bank, to security and engineering, and then from engineering ended up in a mining company. And then mining is where OT came in, and my boss at the time, and again, we're going back sort of, 10 years-ish, and OT wasn't, again, like a big thing at the time. And he said, have you ever thought of kind of studying and going into that field of work? It's something obviously that we're doing in the mining sector. And sort of that led me on to do the SANS courses, and really took an interest from there. And of course, then I moved back to the UK, kept that job for a little while, and then came across CyberOwl. And I guess what really interested me in that role was the fact that with all those kind of experiences that I've had within SOCs, was the opportunity to kind of put them into practice, help build the CyberOwl SOC but also the element of OT that was going to be in there as well. So it ticked a lot of boxes, and that's pretty much where I am today.
Okay, that's awesome. It's a good career history. I've got so many questions about that. We'd end up talking for hours. But two questions I do have is when you interviewed for the bank in Australia for the desktop role. During that interview, did you make it known that the first time that you wanted to step into security, or did you kind of keep your cards close to your chest, or what did you do?
Yeah, I did keep my cards close because I just thought if they knew I had ulterior motives, they probably wouldn't let me in. But equally, I did want the job anyway. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I want to go into security tomorrow. I went into a role, worked with great people. And if that opportunity arose along that road, then I was, going to be happy with that. It happened actually a lot quicker. So I was in the the desk side role for just a year, and then went straight into the security role. So it happened quite quickly and quicker than I expected, but I was still willing to, let that just naturally take its course and end up there when I ended up there. So yeah, but when I started the role, I did make that known, and it was interesting because the other people that I work with, it was always a case of, how come she's moved into it so quickly and whatever. And it was like, well, have you ever made it known what it is that you want to do and where you want to go? And they were like, well, no. And it's like, well, maybe if you did that then and went and met the right people, because, I was quite proactive about it and was going to some of the security meetings and just, chatting to the people that were there. Whereas, my colleagues were not so much doing that. So, and I think that probably accelerated that process a little.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you were interviewing anywhere, if, say, for example, you're interviewing to be a blue team, you're not going to go in there and say, oh, well, actually, I want to do this because I want to do something different, right? So that makes sense. And I think for advice to anyone looking to join the industry, you made a point there where you didn't get it the first time, but then you got it the second time. So persistence is key. But then also you've got to be super proactive about it. And I'm pretty sure that role could have afforded you quite a lot of opportunity to take part in more security-focused stuff. Which is great. My second question was, I see it a lot recently, and again, probably to help those watching this, I see OT being mentioned a lot and IT. Do you want to give a high-level description on what the difference is between the both?
So IT is your typical sort of infrastructures within businesses that we all kind of know and see, and you have your typical kind of desktops, workstations, your typical business infrastructures. When you go into OT, which is operational technologies, and I'll use the mining company that I used to work for, the infrastructure is very different. The terminology is different. The assets that they have are very different. And there's a lot of automation there. So when I worked in the mining company specifically, they had a lot of automated tooling. And when we talk about automation, we're talking a mine site that is hundreds of miles away, but is actually being worked on by my colleagues who worked in the same office as me in Perth. So, they're on, remote controls driving diggers and remote controls driving trains and things like this. So it's that difference in technology and the protocols and things that get used around that. There is quite a difference. Sometimes you will still see IT in OT, but predominantly it's just, it's very different. Typically it's more locked down as well. So, IT is very busy, very noisy. You have lots of people working on things, you see things flying across the network. In OT, it's very, tends to be more standard. For the very reason that it needs to be very secure, because you're dealing with, factory equipment, power stations, things like that.
Okay, that's awesome. It's not really an area that we get much exposure to, even when I'm speaking to other people within Blue Team. So some good experience there. So moving on into the International Women's Day piece, we've seen or we've heard a lot around imposter syndrome. So I'd like to ask, have you ever kind of experienced anything of the sort?
I mean, I think I could safely say, and not just women, men as well, that everybody will experience this at some point in their career. And I think that's largely down to, and probably when we're talking about cyber and we're talking about cybersecurity, that kind of thing, there's so many different facets to it that people feel they need to be good at everything. And then what you generally happens is that well, number one, you don't have to be good at everything, but through your days, you're going to be asked to do things that you're not particularly good at. And I think they're the times where you would probably feel that the most, because you've been asked to do something, it's not really your forte, it's not something that even you might be interested in. So at the end of the day, you feel like, oh, I didn't really do a good job there. So it might leave you feeling a little bit like you're not good enough. And I've probably had that through my career where I've gone into maybe particular roles or dealt with particular people or particular projects, whatever it may be, that just I wasn't the best at. I mean, that's not to say that you're not good at other things. It's just on that particular day or that particular week, you're just working on something that someone is better at it than you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think therefore it's very important to identify the things that you are good at and accept you can't be good at everything, and really play to the skills that you do have. So you have less of those days and more sort of positive, confident days.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think human nature, if we step away from work, I think everyone always remembers the negatives, right? Someone might say, they might list off and say, you've done so good this month, you're awesome at X, Y, and Z, but then you could actually improve on this particular area. We will just focus on that, which is a shame. So what would your advice be, or to anyone looking or anyone experiencing that?
I mean, I think number one, I think you have to be very genuine to yourself and not try and be something that you're not. And definitely and don't do things that aren't you. And I think sometimes people can go down that road, and specifically in IT, because they want to be good at lots of things, and they might not necessarily be things that they like or they enjoy. And an example to that would be, through my career, I don't know coding. I've never picked it up. It's never really interested me. Have I then thought, oh, I need to go and do that? Not really, because I just think there is going to be someone out there who's amazing at it, who's always going to be better than I am. And, probably I don't need to do it because there'll be someone else who can do it. So I think just being very genuine and not trying to do things or be things that you're not, number one. And I think off the back of that then comes my second piece of advice is confidence. And I think when you be confident in the skills that you do have, rather than, for instance, the phrase of, jack of all trades, master of none. And I think be confident in the skills that you've got and really master those skills will boost your confidence, and will, you'll have less of those times where, where you talk about imposter syndrome. If you're confident in the very things that you're good at, then I think you'll have, you'll excel in any role that you go into, because when you go into roles, and specifically what I like to look for is lots of different people who can do different things and are very good at those things. And I think when you bring lots of different people together with different skill sets is where SOCs and teams, excel, because everybody is good at that one thing. So I think, be off the back of that would be be confident and be confident in the skills that you've got, and own the fact that you can't be good at everything, and you're not going to be good at everything, basically. And I think another thing would be that I see frequently, and again, this is not just limited to women, is speaking out, the confidence to be involved and speak out. No idea is a bad idea. And I frequently see on both sides of the house, men and women that are ridiculously clever, are really good at their jobs, but they don't get involved. And that will kind of set them back a bit and hinder them a little bit, because they do all this great work and then it doesn't get recognized because, they're one of the quiet people who sits in the corner, or, they don't like to kind of get involved in things. So I think in order to, climb the ladder or, excel in the career path of your choice would be that you really do need to get involved in various things.
Two really good points there. I think on your last one, I think if someone's struggling, if they join in an organisation and they struggle with their own confidence, have confidence in your team or your hiring manager to be able to support the direction or trajectory you want to go on. Because I guess it's a bold statement, but if you're not getting that where you are now, there is other organisations that would definitely offer that to you. So I think as a whole, correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone within security are very kind of open-minded. There's loads of mentors coming out. Everyone wants to learn because they know you've got a skills gap or skills shortage, depending how you want to look at it. And how do we get everyone up to like kind of the same playing field? So have confidence either in yourself or in your employer to be able to speak out. And I think we were briefly on your first point. We were speaking about noise within a SOC before this. I think staying true to what you enjoy doing, and not so much listening to whether what recruiters are saying or what other people in security are saying you need to do. Whether that's you really need to focus on the Azure tech stack or coding, as you say. And just focus on the areas that you do enjoy, because ultimately if you do that, you're going to excel in that. Just be open-minded that actually there are kind of some fundamentals that I probably need to increase my skill set on. But then ultimately you're going to be in a position where, I don't know whether it's working with malware or something like that, or whether it's more like consulting, you're going to excel in that particular area and ultimately be happy, because no one's going to want to do, and actually, as you said, coding, but I don't enjoy coding, so why am I going to spend 6 to 12 months learning that? Because someone's told me I need to do that to get into the industry. So it's some really good points. And then moving on ever so slightly, you're in a senior position. You've ultimately hired people to join your team before. What would your advice be to hiring managers to give people more confidence, do you think? It's a tricky question.
I think, when I've been looking at people to hire, of course, we're always looking for technical skills in, the particular role that they're going into. But one of the things that, and across my time in many SOCs, what I feel is most important is soft skills. And again, these are, when we come back to confident people and people who are personable and can articulate, these are all things that, you can't just go off and do certificates for. So you can come across people who have a raft of things on their CV, but actually when you interview are not very personable or can't articulate what they want to say, or it's things like this that I would pick up on when I'm hiring, should I say, that I want somebody who is confident, and I don't necessarily look for someone who's got the most amounts of skills on their CV. What I like to know is, are they going to work well within our SOC? Are they a team player? Can they be customer facing? Because obviously we deal with customers. And they're the skills that I would probably look for first, and then the technical capabilities would probably come second, if you like. And equally, we have come across these people where they have got lots of technical expertise, but they just don't fit. In the sense that they might not be able to speak to a customer, or they just didn't come across as they would get on well with other team members. So I think that's quite important, that the human aspect of hiring is probably more important than the technical, in my opinion. And in most cases, unless, of course, you need someone who's very specific and that is all that matters. I think when you're talking about a SOC, there's lots of different roles that go into that. So for me, it's more personal skills.
Okay. And you're not the first person to say that, and that's great. And that should give anyone watching this that confidence to actually, well, actually, I am personable. I know if you give me something, I'm going to go away and learn it, and I can deal with internal conflict and all the kind of key soft skills that you're saying. So that should give everyone some confidence. That's really good to hear. I guess a final sidewinder question for you. What do you think you'd be doing if you weren't in cybersecurity? Would you still be on a beach in Australia somewhere, or what would you be doing?
I don't know, to be honest. My kids often ask me this question, and it's quite hard. I'm quite a creative person, so I don't know. I think I'd probably be in a role that is more creative, I guess, with some, for instance, in my downtime, I kind of like cooking and things like that. So creating things, my partner's in the building trade. So, we've renovated and built houses and, all that kind of stuff. So I think it would be something, I don't particularly know what, that has a creative aspect to it.
Okay, interesting. And I bet that helps you switch
totally
off a lot,
the polar
doesn't it?
opposite.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think you need that to be able to help switch off, right? So I don't know whether you could say security is a creative industry, and if you're a creative person, you need to kind of engage that part of your brain to switch off, right? But no, that's amazing. I think you've passed over some valuable insight there, and some key tips on people, women or men looking to kind of get into the industry, and how people who are looking to hire can kind of change their mindset a little bit. So thanks so much, Carlie. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you.